Hey, what's going on everyone? Nick here with HN Entertainment's spoiler-free review for Spider-Man Far From Home. So this movie was pretty anticipated for a few different reasons, one of which because it's the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, and yet another standalone adventure with a wall crawler in the MCU played by Tom Holland, two because it was introducing the villainous Mysterio played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and three because it was serving as an epilogue to Avengers Endgame, which shattered the entire MCU and is going to be changing things pretty drastically going forward. So my initial thoughts walking out of the film was that it was good, but not great. There were a lot of flaws with it. There was a lot of things that I found clunky with the script. This did have a different writing team compared to Spider-Man Homecoming, which was written by Goldstein and Daly, the team behind Vacation, and the directors of the Flash movie that is still upcoming. But what I found lacking in the actual script, I thought were carried by the performances, which were pretty good overall in the movie, especially Jake Gyllenhaal and Tom Holland. One of the biggest questions that I had, and probably a lot of people did have, is how it's going to sort of deal with the fact that this is a post-Endgame world and the whole 5-year time jump happened. Certain people got snapped away, certain people didn't get snapped, so people are grown older, people didn't grow older, and that would really affect a high school setting because some kids did age 5 years and pretty much out-aged, their whole grade class, and other kids didn't, like Ned and Peter. And I have to say the film does address it to an extent, but not in the way that I was hoping. I thought it would be much more of a interesting exploration to see the world after the 5-year time jump, but unfortunately they kind of treat it like an afterthought in the beginning of the movie. Now, as for the characters this time around, we do have newcomers, like I mentioned, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, we have Nick Fury joining the team, and Maria Hill. There's also some other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents like Dimitri, played by Newman Akar, and we have the Elemental characters, which are clearly based off of characters like Hydro Man, Molten Man, Cyclone, and possibly Sandman. The Elementals are fine, they do their job as big raging monsters, but the real standout here is Mysterio. Now, Mysterio is an interesting one. I think the marketing is doing a great job showing him as somewhat of a hero and mentor to Peter, but anyone familiar with the character knows that he does take a different turn at some point, and when he does, he really brings it in the film. Now, as for some of my problems with the film, I felt like there was no real explanation as to why it had to take place in Europe, other than the fact to get Peter out of New York, which I guess is something that Sony has been trying to do for a while now, but really the film could have taken place anywhere. The whole idea of them going on a trip is never really explained, and the motivations behind the trip kind of changed here and there between scenes. I felt like things move way too fast during the first act of the film, and then it slows down and picks up again during the later half. I also had a problem with Nick Fury's characterization in this, even though he does try to explain it that since he was snapped away, the world has changed in 5 years, and he's still trying to pick up the pieces, but I guess there is an explanation that happens later on, but I still wasn't really too hot on him in this movie. I also felt like a big problem with this film is that it's so surface level in its storytelling, in which Spider-Man's entire motivation is that he wants to get with MJ and wants to be with her, and he has basically no interest or motivation to be Spider-Man in the film until the very end, really, which is kind of a big problem, but I guess that's just something that this character is still going through because he is pretty young. He's only 16, so I guess he is still trying to learn how to be a hero. One thing I did love about the film is that it has one of the most comic accurate scenes I've ever seen in the MCU involving Mysterio. You'll just have to wait and see because I definitely don't want to spoil anything about it. So, final thoughts, it's a good movie, not a great one. Could have been a lot better, I think, had they explored different things with the whole 5-year time jump, playing with the fact that the world is drastically different after Avengers Endgame, but I also felt the motivation should have been more clear and just better thought out for Peter overall. My final grade for the film is a C, and I think that if you're a fan of Tom Holland's Peter Parker and his Spider-Man characterization, you'll probably have a good time with the film. It's pretty fun overall. There's nothing that really drags in it. All the characters have good moments. but overall I just found it to be kind of lackluster, I guess, in terms of what I was expecting. If you have seen the film, drop your thoughts down in the comments below, but let's try to keep it as spoiler free as possible because there are some pretty big reveals during Far From Home that we don't want to get out there so that people can experience them for the first time next week. For more updates on everything Spider-Man Far From Home and Marvel and pop culture, be sure to subscribe to HN Entertainment.